Good evening and welcome to the debut of the Stan O Show. Hi, I am Stan O, and this is my new YouTube channel where I am going to talk about movies. And they are movies that I like, movies that I've grown up with, and they could be movies that I also watch today, and you and I will be discussing them. My wife and I do have another channel, Mr. Stan 913, but this is a channel I want to start on my own. From a long time ago, I have always loved movies, and what has started this for me was a movie I saw years ago as a kid. And please bear with me. This is my first time live streaming with a camera. So I'm working with my equipment, as you see, and I'm going to actually turn the music down now so I could talk for you. But what has started this off for me was, as a kid, I used to watch movies. But what I really liked that got me started was back in 1981. It was Raiders of the Lost Ark. And I was 11 years old, growing up in the Northeast. And I had a cousin that asked me to, we were down at the shore at the beach. And our cousins were down there. And one of my cousins said about this movie, Raiders of the Lost Ark. And we were all like, what's that? Don't know what it is. But I forgot to mention, I do have a live chat going. If you would like to bring up any of your memories of the movie, anything you want to ask me, any thoughts that you have, please add it to the live chat. And I'm monitoring that for you. And then if I can, I'll answer it. But growing up, again, we didn't know what this movie was, and we were down at the Jersey Shore, and we, as kids, we didn't know what we were going to go see. We would go to the movies once or twice during our time down at the Jersey Shore, and we picked a different movie, and I'll get into that. But I want to start off with this slide I have here. This is, to me, this is the original, and everybody knows this. This is the original Raiders of the Lost Ark poster. And when I see like a DVD come out, a Blu-ray come out, I see something on TV and they show the poster, they never show this poster. They never show this poster. They're always showing, and let me move on here, they always show this poster, the happy-go-lucky Indy, right? But to me, that it was after the fact. The movie came out, it was a hit, everybody loved it, so they created this poster. This, to me, is not the original poster. This is the original poster. And whenever on my streaming device that I have, I always show this poster on my streaming device for the movie. But I just really, it irks me when I see this poster in, when they're bringing out the Blu-ray, they're bringing out the DVD, they always have this poster up. This is not the original poster. But getting back to my story. So I was young, I was 11 years old. We were down at the shore, the beach, and we all wanted to go to the movies. My cousin's like, hey, there's this movie out. We saw it. It's called Raiders of the Lost Ark. We're like, what's Raiders of the Lost Ark? We don't want to see that. We ended up going to see, and it was a hit. To be honest, it was a hit. We ended up going to see the Cannonball Run with Burt Reynolds, Roger Moore, Don DeLuise, Farrah Fawcett, all-star cast. Was it a good movie? Yes. Was it funny? Yes. Was it something you'll remember? No. If it's on TV, maybe people will watch it. But this was the movie that we went to see down the shore, and not Raiders of the Lost Ark. To this day, my cousin says, I can't believe out of all the movies you guys chose the Cannonball Run. So what happened? Well, we got back from vacation, months went by, and my cousin one night said, I'm going to take you to go see this movie. And I was blown away. I kept talking to my father about it, how great it was. I was playing with my toys like I was like Indiana Jones. I was setting up like my Lincoln Logs. If people remember the Lincoln Logs, I used to set the Lincoln Logs up playing Indiana Jones. And I bugged my father about it so much that one night he surprised me and he took me to the movies. And my father, to be honest, real rarely took me to the movies. I remember seeing King Kong with him with Jeff Bridges and Jessica Lange, and which is a good movie. We saw that together, but my father took me to see Raiders, and he came home and said probably one of the best action movies he's ever seen in his life. To this day, that just brings back memories, seeing it with my father and hearing him say that. So whenever Raiders is on, I always watch it. I always watch scenes. I like the sound. I like the music, and we'll get into that. And what I'm going to get into tonight is just walk through the movie, just going to show you some snapshots from the film. But in the end, I'm going to show you in some snapshots what I think is the most realistic, and I mean realistic, like it would really, you see this happen in life, right? You would see something happen, like you say, oh, that looks so real, right? To me, that is what I call a realistic scene in the movie. And on this channel, I'm going to do that from time to time. I'll say this was realistic. I didn't like that. I thought this was good, in my opinion. And I would like you in the chat, or even after, if you watch this video, to in the comments below, give me what you feel is a realistic scene from Raiders of the Lost Ark, or any of these movies that I'm going to show you in the future. When we're going to talk about any type of movie, I'm going to go into love movies. I'm going to go into drama. I'm going to go into science fiction. But let's start off. So again, Cannonball Run I chose over Raiders of the Lost Ark. To this day, I hear that from my cousin. So when I first saw the movie, again, this is the opening scene where, Indy's in South America, and he is looking for the idol, right? That little tiki idol, right? I called it back then. And when Harrison Ford came on the screen, as everybody, like, I didn't know who Harrison Ford was. Like, I was a kid. I didn't know Harrison Ford was Han Solo. So when I saw it, I'm like, oh my God, that's Han Solo. And I was like locked into the movie then, just locked in. I just was like, oh my God, this is going to be really good. And as we know, in this scene, he goes into the cave, he looks for the idol, and a lot of people probably noticed there's some behind the scenes that this idol its eyes actually did move back and forth. And I think they had problems getting it to work. And they said, if you look very closely at one of the scenes, you can just barely see the eyes of the tiki move a little bit when the camera's facing the tiki's eyes. As we know, he gets through this here, and he goes through the thorns, or whatever it is, the darts, and Sapito gets killed, played by Alfred Molina. If everybody knows, that's from Spider-Man. He also was in Boogie Nights too. He was the drug dealer in Boogie Nights, which was kind of funny when you see him now. As you see, the boulder comes through. Now, to me, the boulder scene, okay, we know about this. We know how heavy it was. We know how big it was. We know Harrison Ford, if he slipped, he would have got hurt. But the boulder scene, yeah, it's okay to me. It's really cool to see and what the boulder is doing. It's closing the cave forever so that nobody can come out of the cave. They're there for life. They're gonna die in there. So to me, yeah, realistic scene, no. Really cool as a kid. Yeah, today you look at it, okay, there's the boulder scene. But moving on, he gets out of that. We know he goes back home. He goes into his job as he's a professor of archaeology, and then we have the government come to him and ask him about the does he know about Ravenwood, and they're looking for his known abouts and what he knows about the Lost Ark. And Indy gives these guys just the whole history of the Ark and the idol that they need to find the Ark, and it's like with the crystal. And little did anybody know that the guy in the middle there with the suit, the light blue suit there, or whatever that is, that's Porkins from Star Wars. That was in the battle of at the end of the Death Star battle. So that's Porkins in the middle there, and he was just in this scene, and he's at the end. And but this is where Indy tells them, the history of the idol, and he lets them know here, what the Ark can do, the power that the Ark has, the power of God or something. And Indy doesn't really believe in that stuff. But in the later years, as he gets older in all the other movies, he starts believing in a lot of that. And it's really cool to see this scene because, he's very serious about his work. He's very serious about, archaeology and, finding artifacts for museums. He wants to keep things in the museums, and he gets well paid, I guess, for this. But really cool scene here. So again, the government hires him. He ends up going to Nepal to find this little idol, and that's going to help him find the Ark and where it is in Cairo. So little do people know this day that the gentleman on the plane is actually John Williams, the composer of all the music of Raiders. I never knew this till just recently, that this was John Williams, and they just put him in a hat, his glasses, and all he did was move the magazine down, and he's just keeping an eye on Indy because they are the Nazis, and they're trying to just follow him to see what he is going after, and knowing that he's looking for the Ark as well. So, as we all know, Indy goes to Nepal, and he's looking for this little idol, and he needs this to find the Ark. And his old girlfriend is Marion, who is in Nepal. He knows has this idol, and this is one scene that a lot of people don't really look at, like when. This is after she plays the drinking game, right? This is what I think is really cool, but it's too quick of a cut. Like Indy walks in and the shadow is here. That's a really cool shot right there of him coming in, and you see his silhouette on the wall from the fire that's burning in the fireplace in the bar. And it's pretty quick, that scene. They kind of do the same thing in the Crystal Skull movie. In the beginning, when they pull Indiana Jones out of the trunk of the car, they throw his hat on the ground, and then he gets up and he puts it on. That same shadow, they did the same thing in Crystal Skull. But this one I think is really cool because he slowly walks in. He's got that slow walk. You could tell he's got his hands in his pocket there. Pretty cool shot right there. And then in this scene, she's Indiana Jones. Always knew someday you'd come walking back through my door. And then she punches him in the face. And actually, in this scene, it was actually cut out. There's actually a kissing scene where she grabs him, and Marion kisses Indy in this scene, but it was cut out. Actually, if you go online, you could see some of the behind the scenes shots. And I forgot to mention this. When I fell in love with Raiders, PBS, public broadcasting channels, they would show this behind the scenes of Raiders of the Lost Ark. And that's what got me hooked on movies too. It was like just the behind the scenes of how they can take a movie film it out of context, put it all together and put it into a 2-hour movie, and now a 3-hour movie or a 4-hour movie, just the whole behind the scenes. And with this movie, a lot of this is all sets. There's not really special effects. There is just good acting, gunshots, punches, all that. All is, to me, is realistic. But again, not the realistic scenes I'm going to show you later on. So, Indy comes in here, meets Marion. She says, come back tomorrow. He says he's going to have more money for him. And he leaves. Well, then who comes in? Everybody knows the Nazis come in. And they are they want the idol as well. But before they walk in, we all know Marion has the idol underneath her shirt. She turns it around here in the flame, and then the flame actually moves because of the crystal in the middle. It needs sunlight for you to find where the Ark is in the map room. So she puts it down. The Nazis come in. We all know they want the idol. She knows the idol's on the table. She's not cooperating with them. So what are they going to do? They're going to torture her until she tells her where the idol is. So in comes Indy, we know. Now, one of the coolest scenes in this shot, we all know, is the gunfire, the shooting, and we all know the fire starts. The whiskey goes along the bar, right? And it files in the path of the bar, and Indy's on the ground. He smacks the guy in the head, right? But what I really think is cool in this scene is the bullet ricochets that nobody really knows about. If you watch the behind the scenes, they show you how they put the little schwibs in the wall and where they're going to pop. And there's a gentleman on the side that does that, right? But in that scene, if you go back and just watch that scene, watch when he goes into that little cove there and they start shooting and you hear the sounds of the gunshots going off, the ricochets. And then once Indy is in that little cove, the ricochets, and you can see in the shot here, the ricochets are going off the wall. Listen to that in surround sound. When I was a kid, there wasn't really surround sound. It was mono. So I used to listen to it really loud. And my father would say, yell, turn that down, turn that down. But it's just nowadays, if you go back and watch it, and they've actually increased the sound into 7.1 surround sound, even in 7.1 and the 5.1 surround sound, it's really cool to see. So he's in there and he gets shot up and, they shoot the guy in the head. Really cool scene. I like this here. Just the sound again and the ricochets of the bullet, I think is just so cool. And I see somebody joined the chat and they said they never knew that about that being John Williams. Yeah. Thank you for that. So then Indy ends up, Marion goes with him. They end up in Cairo, and then they end up walking through the town here, the shopping area, and the Nazis hire these guards to, these Arab guys to fight Indy. And, this scene is okay to me. I mean, yeah, you get to see him with the bullwhip and everything, but there's a scene in this where the guy gets stabbed with the sword, and then when they pull it out, you can actually tell in that scene it's kind of like a dummy. And if you watch it over again, you could tell when they pull the sword out, it's a dummy. This is okay to me. I like it. I like it a lot, but again, it's more of, you could tell it's like a choreographed fighting scene, which is not, to me, really realistic. Indy running through the town here looking for Marion because, she gets taken by the Nazis and she's in the basket. And then Indy ends up shooting that guy, right? Which is a scene that everybody knows about, that really they weren't supposed to film that way. Everybody was sick on the set except Steven Spielberg. Steven Spielberg was eating just regular food. I think he was eating they said he was eating like food out of a can, where everybody else got food poisoning. They were sick from the heat. And, Harrison Ford ended up just shooting the guy. But there is actually online, you can see the actual scene where the guy with the sword comes after him. And Indy, ends up, I think, killing him. I don't know how he kills him, but he ends up, maybe he shoots him. I don't know. But there is a whole fighting scene with the sword that was cut out because everybody was sick. So Harrison Ford just said, let me just shoot the guy. So he shot him and ends up to be one of the most classic scenes in movie history, right? And when you first saw that for the first time, you didn't know what was going to happen. And I remember as a kid, just the laughter in the theater. And even today, if they released it today, don't you think people would still today just laugh? Because it is a fun scene, right? So let me move on here. So again, Marion gets captured. She's in the basket. The truck flips over and explodes, right? And this was a cool scene because, the truck, if you go back and watch the behind the scenes, the truck had like an actual like catapult underneath, like with a, I think it was like a telephone pole that actually made it like explode off of the ramp and then turn over and then explode. That's a really cool scene. I liked. To me, not really realistic, but it is really cool to see the explosion, how they did it, and how they prepared for it. And today, they don't really, if you think about it, a lot of these explosions and stuff is all done with CGI. And this was all back in the 79, 80 when they did this. That's what was so cool about it. And I know it would probably be expensive today to do it, but to me, a lot of, like I said, not at CGI, not a lot of special effects. Yeah, this is special effects, but it's realistic special effects, right? So Adrian, he thinks is killed, right? But we all know she's not. They switched the baskets, right? So Indy has the idol. He goes to where they're digging for the, for the ark, and he goes into the map room. As we know, he finds, he knows the exact distance of the pole where it has to be, how high the pole has to be. To here, this is like your first special effects scene, right? With the beam, right? Okay, it's okay. But there is something else I noticed. Go back and watch when he drops the stick into the hole up there in the light that you see when he's outside and he drops the stick. I noticed these days that the stick didn't look real to me. It looks like they added that with special effects. It didn't look real. So go back and watch that scene where he drops the stick from outside. The stick looks like it's black. Like it doesn't look like the real stick. To me, I think they added that in. Maybe somebody could comment on that after they watch this or something. But to me, it doesn't look real. So Indy finds where the ark is. He gets out of the map room here. Sala has to drop in all the different flags because the Nazis saw him there, so he had to make a new rope. So he made it out of flags. So at this point, Indy's walking around in the village, and he breaks free from Sala. He goes into a tent, finds Marion, right? So Marion wants him to leave with him, and he says if they do, they'll start combing the place for him. Really cool scene. She's yelling at him. To me, really good acting here. A lot about Raiders I like too is like a lot of the movie was acting, right? There was not a lot, some scenes there wasn't a lot of dialogue, right? And Indy doing his archaeological thing, right? In the later movies, like Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, right? There's a lot of dialogue in it, a lot of comedy. The Last Crusade, same thing. Crystal Skull, same thing. And we won't talk about the Dial of Destiny till the end, but I'm going to give you my opinion on that at the end. And if I forget about it, please ask me in the comments and I will give you my thoughts on that. So, again, Marion, he leaves her. He goes up with his little tool here and his measurements, finds out where the ark is, and his last saying here is, "That's it," right? So they dig for the ark at night. In that scene, too, if you watch really closely, that's all special effects. It's all indoors. They were, you can tell by the lightning and all, it was all special effects. So they get into the map room. They get into the Well of Souls. And again, all the snakes. And as we know, Harrison Ford really wasn't afraid of snakes. We all know that there was a glass there, so the cobra really wouldn't go after him. But yeah, really cool scene. The snakes. The only thing I always wonder now watching it, they open up that Well of Souls, right? How are those snakes alive there after all these years, right? Is it the power of God? The power of God that's doing that to keep the snakes alive, right? Are they just going through that hole that Indy saw? Because you remember, later on in the scene when Marion gets dropped in, Indy figures out a way out, right? He sees that hole. The snakes are coming through the holes, and you hear that classic music. And we'll get into that later on about the music. But that classic music, when he figures out through that wall, he says, then he figures out, let me knock down this big idol here, and it'll break the wall down. So him and Sallah find the Ark, right? We all know in this scene there's a little drawing of R2-D2 and C-3PO. Actually, I really have never seen it, but I know there's snapshot photos of the R2-D2 and C-3PO that were drawn into here. But they find the Ark here. We know the power that it has. That's a pretty cool shot there. Like to know how they got the lighting in there and all, but the well of Souls really isn't that big of a place. If you look real close too, when they're looking down, the box where it's actually being held is like pretty close to the opening of the hole that they break free when they find the opening. But that's a pretty cool scene there. So moving on again, Marion, she gets thrown in. What I think in this scene is pretty cool when Indiana Jones is looking up and they're talking to him, and slowly under his breath, Harrison Ford says, "Ah ha ha, son of a, you know what." If you listen really close, you hear him say "son of a," and he uses the B word, right? And it's pretty cool. That's a pretty funny scene. I always just like the way he acts down there, because he knows, he's afraid of snakes, right? And then they throw Marion in. She's mad at him. Then she sees the snakes and she's all over them, and then she's yelling up at them. But what I really think is cool in this scene, when they're closing and putting the rock back on, and right before it closes, Marion screams, "No!" And then you just hear her echo, and then boom, quiet, dead silence. So she's locked in there forever. And again, Indy finds his way out, right? Marion sees those skeletons that come alive. How'd they come alive? I don't know. I mean, to me, as a kid, that was scary. But nowadays, you look at it, it's like, okay, you just ask the question, how did they come alive? But still a cool scene, right? But Indy finds the way out, which is he busts through this little corridor thing. And they also say, too, when he's pushing the rock to get out, they say once the rock falls, it's like a square boulder, right? They say once it falls, you notice that it actually bounces. If you see the shadow of it, you actually do see it bounce. And if you look very closely, there's an Arab laying on the ground. And a lot of people notice today that there was a scene when Indy comes out, that Arab is standing right there and looking at Indy, and I think Indy punches him and knocks him out. So if you look very closely at Marion running down there, to the left, there's a guy laying there. Indy knocked him out. They cut that scene out. A lot of people know that to this day, but I never knew it because it happens so quick when they're running down. You really don't get a chance to see him. Watch the scene real quick. You'll see him, and then the scene cuts pretty quick. But yeah, that's they get out. Indy, again, the fight scene at the airplane, Marion takes it over. As everybody knows, the producer of the movie was the pilot, Kennedy. I think it's Kennedy is his last name. He was the pilot that they used. This scene is really cool. And we'll get to my realistic scene at the end. But my realistic scene is around this. Just going to give you a little bit of a hint. It's around this scene all with the airplane. But, really cool scene. Like I said, there's also a documentary that I watched on the gentleman that created that fan film, and they never shot this scene. I forget the name of it. It was the greatest fan film ever made about Raiders of the Lost Ark. They did every scene. I have that video. It's really good. I'll put it in the comments below and let you know what to watch. And it's one of the greatest fan films ever. If you know it too, put it in the comments below. But moving on, the truck scene, right? Probably one of the greatest scenes in movie history, right? And what people don't know, that's not Harrison Ford there. That's his stunt double. But the truck scene, we all know when Indy went under the truck, there was a trench there. The behind the scenes shows that. And also when Indy gets thrown outside the window, if you look very closely, when the limousine that's in front of them, the with no top, and it's got Belloq in there. If you look very closely, Harrison Ford was sitting. There was a little pocket seat for him to just sit on that, and you could see it real close in one of the shots. So we all know he goes under the truck, right? We all know what happens with before that, with all the soldiers behind the truck, what happens. I'm going to give you a little hint. This is my other realistic scene that I'll let you know about at the end. Truck scene, really good. Good scene. Let's move on here. So, Indy gets the Ark. They get on the boat. He's actually hiding up top in that one of those little portholes there. And the Nazis come and they steal the Ark back. You can see the Ark is being lifted up behind them right here. In between them, you can see the Ark being lifted up. And they put it on a submarine, right? And hold on a second. So once they put it on the submarine, how's Indy going to get there? They're looking for him all over the place, right? So then they find him. And Indy actually swims over to the submarine, right? And we all know about this, right? Maybe you don't know about this. So the submarine starts off, right? How does Indy hang on, right? So there's some behind the scenes that they filmed where Indy actually wraps himself around the periscope of the submarine. And there's some scenes that they filmed, and you see Harrison Ford in the water. Also, they say as the submarine's approaching the island, you can barely see like a little model guy, because that was all a model of the submarine when it's approaching the island. You'll see a little guy at the top of the periscope. That's Indiana Jones, it's supposed to be. So the submarine does submerge, but the periscope stays up enough where Harrison Ford's holding on the whole time. And actually, in that PBS special when I was a kid, there is a scene where they interview Harrison Ford, and it looks like he's on a beach. And when I was a kid, I always thought that was Harrison Ford on vacation. And he's like, oh, I'm happy the way the movie came out. I'm happy the way everything worked out. And he looks like he's wet. Well, that was them filming the scene of him on the periscope. And they cut it out of the movie. And I never knew that. If you go online, you can actually see that scene that they cut out. And I think it's on the Blu-rays. It's on the 4K versions like that. Yeah, really cool. So they get to the island. Indy gets there. He dresses up as a Nazi. He beats up the guy inside where the submarine docks. And then he, is going to blow the Ark up. And as we all know, where they are right now in this scene is where they filmed Star Wars. The scene with R2-D2 where Obi-Wan Kenobi actually is, you first see Obi-Wan Kenobi, his debut in the original Star Wars Episode 4. This is where they filmed it. And as we all know, Belloq in this scene, there's this real close, if you watch, a fly actually goes into his mouth. The actor, as he was talking in his close-up, you see a fly into his mouth. And he kept acting as, the fly goes into his mouth. So if you watch that over, you'll see the fly actually go into Belloq's mouth. But yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah. So again, go back and watch that. It's something really funny to see. I never knew that either until a few years ago. So They do the old ritual, right? This is where we get some special effects made by ILM. Okay, the ghosts come out and they kill all the Nazis. Belag and the German guys, their faces melt, and this almost got an R rating because it was so graphic, as we know, with their faces blowing up. That Spielberg, I think, had to put like flame in front of them to get it to be a PG rating movie. And to this day, if you look back at this probably would have got a PG-13. What started PG-13 was Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom with the heart scene, right? When he pulled the Molaron pulls the heart out of the gentleman. That was so graphic that that's where it ended up being. That's what started PG-13. And actually, there's an interview with Steven Spielberg where he went to the Motion Picture Association of America and asked them to create a PG-13 rating, and they did. I see Unzipped with Amanda says, unpopular opinion, this is not my favorite Indiana Jones movie. Wow. So Raiders of the Lost Ark is not Amanda's favorite Indiana Jones movie. Wow. To me, though, this one is, and I'm going to give you my opinion of the Dial of Destiny. And Temple of Doom was almost like Star Wars, right? And Empire Strikes Back. Empire Strikes Back was very dark, right? The Empire takes over. So Lucas wanted to make this one dark, and rumor was he was going through a divorce when he was writing Temple of Doom. So, again, everybody gets killed here. Marion and Indy survived because they kept their eyes shut. They didn't look at the ghosts. And the Ark closes up. They know the power of the Ark, and this is them, showing their love for each other, but also happy that they're alive, right? So, moving on, as we know, this is the end scene, right? It goes in, they go into the crates, they lock it up. Indy wants to know where it is. It's under, it's being checked by top men, and then and then that famous scene here, which is all drawing of these boxes. This was all drawing, and the gentleman just pushes it back there, and then again we see this in the Crystal Skull, right? We see that crate in the Crystal Skull when it gets ripped open, and Indy drives by, and you see the Ark. So that's when you see the Ark. So that is just a quick overview of Raiders by me. But now let's get into what I feel in this movie is the two most realistic scenes. Okay, and realistic I mean by, and I said this earlier, by you would see this scene and go, wow, that's something looks pretty real, right? This is something that you would see happen to somebody. The airplane scene. We all know Indy goes in and he knocks out the guy that's working on the plane. Marion knocks out the pilot. And then comes in the big guy, right? The bald-headed guy. Who, that actor, and I can't remember his name, is in all three of the first Indy movies. He was the actual big guard that Indy fought in the Temple of Doom. He, in the mine car when he was fighting them. That's the same guy. And he was also in The Last Crusade. I think when Indy was getting on the blimp with his father, he's in one of the scenes right there. Real quick scene. Indy doesn't do anything to him there. But that big guard, right? Indy's fighting him, right? We all know how he gets killed. But go back, and I ask you, go back and watch right before he gets killed. And watch when Indy throws the 3 punches to his face. He throws the first punch, and you know he's going to break his nose. When he throws the second one, you start seeing the blood. Third one, blood. Just the power of that punch, how it shows the blood, because you know he broke his nose. And then the third one, you know he really broke his nose because the guy's got a bloody face. And I'm going to show you in this shot right here. You see it. And it was hard for me to pause it here, but when he gets punched in the face there, you know he's breaking his nose. And then the blood splatters every time he punches him. It gets bigger and bigger. And then you know he punches Indy. He falls to the ground. And you know Indy got hit pretty hard because, you know, at the end, Indy's actually wiping off his chin there in the tent when Solace notices that the two of them are alive, him and Marion still. But go back and watch that scene and listen to the power of the punch. It sounds pretty cool, doesn't it? The power of the punch. Listen to the power of the punch and just watch the blood as he's punching him. That to me is realistic. Very realistic shot right there. Now, I said earlier that there was another shot, and it was during the truck scene, right? The truck scene, which was, again, pretty cool. He gets on the truck with the horse. He fights the two guys in the truck, kicks the one out, punches the guy out the door. The motorcycle comes along. He knocks them out of the way. Then the Jeep comes along, crashes the Jeep off the mountain, right? And right there, that was special effects. That, to me, looks really bad. To this day, I just don't like that scene. But then the guards, the guys in the back of the truck, they start coming along the side, right? And he's got to knock them all off. So what's he do? He swerves back and forth, knocking them all off. To me, the most second realistic scene in Raiders of the Lost Ark, the last guy who comes up with the gun and leans in and fires the gun, and Indy ducks. And as he fires and shoots, if you can barely see it in the shot here, but you hear it, you see it. You hear the gunshot, you see the schwib in his shoulder explode with the blood, and then Indy kicks the door and the guy falls to the side, right? And of course we know what happens. He actually knocks the door off, the guy falls, the next guy comes in, boom, boom, Indy's out the window, under the truck. We all know they built a trench to get under the truck, right? But go back and watch this scene right here. It's only 1 to 2 seconds, but just watch the gunshot, watch the schwib go off, the blood splatter. It just real fast how loud it is. It is just so cool to me. I love this shot right here. So they are my two realistic shots in Raiders of the Lost Ark. The punch to the face and the shot to the arm, I call it. And, that's just, not saying I love the movie all the way through, but when these two scenes come on, I just love it, and I want to get to what also makes the movie really well, right? The acting, right? We talked about the scenes, the sets, how everything was, everything was done with sets. Everything looked real. They were on location. I know it costs money today to do that. But the music, right? You can't get anywhere without the music. John Williams, right? The score. We'll always remember that Indiana Jones score. But go back and listen to the soundtrack of Indiana Jones. You can listen to it and you can know what scene it is in the movie. And in your head, and I do this, like the truck scene, from when he's riding the horse, gets on the truck, that whole scene, that music's in the soundtrack. In every tune you hear in that score where it is in the movie, right? The plane scene, everything. And that's with a lot of John Williams soundtracks. You can just sit there and listen and you can know where you are in the movie, which I think is really cool. I really do. I sit and listen to the scene and you're like, okay, I know where we are. I know what it's, I know what's going to happen next. And then, there's also music they put out there that, that wasn't in the movie, which is really cool too. But, again, look at the soundtrack cover, people. It's the original poster. It's the original poster. That is the original poster of Raiders of the Lost Ark to me, right there. It is the original poster. So whenever you see a DVD, Blu-ray, and you see something different on there, just always remember, this is the original poster. Stano Show debut. I do want to mention that we do still have Mr. Stan 913, which we are going to continue to do the crafts, the travel, the how-to. We also are going to any products that I feel that are really cool for you to buy, and I'll demo that for you. We are going to continue that channel, but the Stano Show is about movies. I'm going to talk about my favorite movies. I want you to comment on those movies. I want you to give me some thoughts on what movies I should watch, and I'll go and watch them. I just hope you just see a different side now of Raiders of the Lost Ark, the way I look at movies, and I'm gonna go into movies like love stories. There's different scenes of love stories that I like, drama movies, and again, I thank you very much for joining my first show tonight, and please continue to watch. Please comment below, and I hopefully each week have a new movie for you. It might not be every week, maybe every other, we'll see. But again, as I always say, thanks for watching, and we'll see you again soon. Thanks again for watching The Stano Show.